with that, I'd like to bring on Gary Pagano. For as Mahay said, how do you go to your CEOs? How do you address the new situation, pivoting to virtual? Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Diane.
And Gary, I love the phrase that you introduced to me, mobilizing around adaptive creativity. Oh, I love that. So anyway, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Diane. It's a pleasure. So one thing we know about our industry, the only constant, if you've ever taken Diane's class at NYU, you'll know this, the only constant is change. We have change hitting us all the time, whether it's like when I've worked with Sam at South by Southwest, having all your I's dotted, T's crossed with the tobacco and alcoholic control board, only to have them show up on site and say, oh no, even yes, we've discussed this, but no, you can't serve beer to 10,000 people. So you have those curveballs all the time. The thing is, with what we're dealing with now with the pandemic is something that's totally new to so many of us, but it is that change. And we were looking at this, I think, when we first started hearing about COVID-19 and what it was doing in the East. Because
before you continue, I'm sorry to interrupt, but yes. When was that about? Like, was that, I mean, from a planning point of view, was that what?
Well, by that point, we were really looking at this. We had been following it in December, but it was really January when we came together and when they started at work introducing travel restrictions.
Right.
This is when we were like, if you have to get the CEO's approval to travel to China or Japan, something's up.
Right.
So what we decided to do is, listen, I have an incredible team. You know, we talk about that agency mentality, Diane, but we kind of work that way. I have really skilled people that are just brilliant people. So what I did was, knowing that this was something that was in the future and we didn't understand it, we didn't know the pathology of the virus at the time, so we didn't know what was going on. What I decided to do is bring my team together, and what we decided to talk about was, if we have to shift to what they're saying virtual, how do we create that kind of engagement around our brands, that face-to-face engagement, which is so important to all our internal clients and the way we do business? How do we keep that engagement moving forward in an age where we may not be able to come together?
Right.
So that was the big question. So we sat down and we started talking. We put different task force together just to ideate about this. Now, we were also working on the upfront season is coming up, you know, where those are, with us, we do different types of upfronts. The CBS Legacy does a really big one at, I think it's Carnegie Hall. For Viacom Legacy, we have always done something a little different. So it used to be big shows. Then what we did is we went by agency and invited the heads of agencies together. So each night for basically 2 weeks, we would do these customized dinners. So everybody had this intimate experience. They got to ask the questions. They got to see what we were offering for the upcoming year, but in a very intimate way.
Right.
We knew that we were going to have to pivot and start changing things. Plus, we had also been working on the initiative within election year. We had been working with our pro-social and digital and social teams to work on a project with the, through When We Vote, the Michelle Obama initiative.
Yeah.
So what they did was the mayor and the school board of Detroit, very impoverished area in our country, they said that we are going to guarantee 100% voter registration from all our seniors graduating high school. So for that, what we decided to do is what we would do is for the winning high schools that actually achieved that, we were going to throw them a very large prom, which was, we were going to have Big Sean perform, other performance. It was going to be this big blowout. So we have these events that are lined up, and we're starting to see the restrictions, and we're learning now more about the pathology. So people have been doing digital conferences, digital virtual meetings. Digital is a new combination of virtual and digital. I'm coining that phrase.
I like digital. I got it.
But so what we had to come up with some solutions, and to also go to people and say, hey, you know what? Doing something live may not be the best thing. Because with us as events people, we all know this. The important thing for us is the needs of our guests are paramount. We have to worry about that guest experience, whether it's finding out that, oh, they're really reacting for this brand, they love this product, they love the show. Besides that, we really have to worry about their well-being. We worry about risk management.
Right.
So knowing this, red flags started to be raised with us. So what we did was we started talking internally at how we can change and leverage some of the things that we're up against, really make this a positive thing. So in speaking about this prom idea that we were doing, and since, so what we did is we approached our teams and said, look, we would love to pivot to a virtual prom. This means that there's going to be still, we could do this for 4,000 to 5,000 to 6,000 people, but we're going to have to do a lot of digging into this. So we brought our production team in, our team, and we started looking at some of the platforms. The cool thing is my team started looking at some of the non-traditional platforms, going into gaming. Gaming is a really incredible way where so many different players can connect together, and they have a different type of experience. It's not watching my big head talking for 20 minutes. This is something that they're interactive with. And that's what we want to get with the virtual events. We want to carry that feel and that excitement. We know that we're looking at so many different people that had stakeholders that had certain needs. So we wanted to try to address them all. So what we did is we started talking about performances with our production team. How can we orchestrate performances and do things for the guests in terms of, being brought in to just get excited about this, like, oh, we got Big Sean that's playing right for us. But also, what about the experience for prom that was lacking if we go to virtual? So what we've started doing was ideating about creating virtual red carpets for people at home. So we would send out different types of backdrops, digital backdrops that they could put behind them, and they could pose in their beautiful prom gowns. We urge people to get dressed up. We also, another thing that we're looking at, our stakeholders, our caterers that are, their businesses have just been devastated by this. But we're also looking at some of the smaller businesses that are getting hit, the smaller delis, the restaurants, everything. And what we wanted to do is find some ways that we could also send hospitality to these people. So we started coming up with an idea of, are there different businesses that that do delivery, so we can time deliveries in each of these sections of Detroit that we'll be doing, so that they can get some kind of amenity that would be really fun for them. Whether it's a premium or swag about the event, but also just some food, something to drink, some fun mocktails or something. We started putting this all together. We came up with a presentation. We went to our clients who were adamant that this is going to happen come hell or high water. However, they listened to us. And this is the hard part of our job, because look, our jobs are on the line. We create face-to-face engagement. We want that live engagement. When you're doing it virtually, you may not need as much staff. So we don't want to see that, but we also have to present the right thing for our clients. So we went to them, we had this drawn up, and we presented this. So from a group that was determined that we had to do this face-to-face, when they heard about just our concern about if we do this and even 5 people get sick, that's out of 5,000, that's still too many, because they could bring that to homes, they could bring it to the elderly. We don't want to chance that. So let's do the right thing. Let's be responsible, and we can create something that's new and fun for the attendee. Because we also, what do we do as events people? We look at our demographic. We know how they consume things. We know what they want. You know, everybody is craving for that connection. So we put this deck together. We went to our social and digital teams and spoke with them, and we were able to turn their view around, and now they've embraced this. This is going to happen in June. We're looking at right now doing the virtual prom. It may run a little later. We may have to do it as a homecoming. It all depends about how the school districts can get their part of this together. But we were able to go to our internal clients and say, this is the responsible thing, and it can create the kind of engagement and buzz and still click all the boxes for you.
Yeah,
So
exactly. But that's a good point, Gary. I mean, the thing is, and so the time frame, because when you work in a major corporation, you know, sometimes things take time, but lately, you know, an hour is like a year, isn't it? So what was the time frame that you turned things around? And so you basically met with your C-suite and explained to them the dynamics of what options existed to continue communication, right?
this took us, Diane, when we first started with the larger groups, to getting this information to my boss, Stephen Kipp, so he could really get everybody on board. We had 2.5 weeks to really put a program together and grasp what needed to be done.
Right.
The wonderful thing is, by doing that groundwork, the other stakeholders, our production team that jumped in, the digital and social teams, we had done the groundwork for them. So it was really by that point buying in and seeing how we could maybe save some dollars because of their expertise, now saying, well, we don't have to go through this third party to host this. We can host this on our own network.
Right. Well, I think it goes back to what, what Mahez was talking about too with Larry. And I mean, John, it's all a lot of it is, it's all financially driven. I mean, you, in the process of doing this switch and this pivot, you're also working on a budget and alternatives, and so that you can present the numbers, right?
Well, and at this time, I mean, I think a lot of the major companies, large companies, are dealing with the same thing. When you have this staff that isn't in the industry, we have to save some money somehow. The wonderful thing about our company is we're looking at these savings from some of these projects, some of the things that we have planned for our internal, our staff events, which are very robust at ViacomCBS. We are looking at ways of saving that so we can save the staff resources and really cut into the budgets and look at different ways of creating engagement, being smarter. And what I loved about Mahez, what he said too, we are responsible for going to these people and telling them, look, we know you want to do an event. Is it the right thing?
Right.
Is this the best thing for you right now? I mean, it's like those clients that we get that are always like, we want to do a rooftop party. I'm like, oh, well, look, it's a rainy season. There's no places where we can have a rain plan. They're like, it's not going to rain. And we know it's going to rain.
I know. Well, listen, we'd all love a client to come to us right now, rain or not. But the thing is, yes. But just, we do have a comment from someone, and I share this one, is, My firm is pivoting from an in-person event to a virtual event with a gift of money to use for hospitality that the employee can use to spend locally to support restaurants. So, you know, again, as we know, this is not about forgetting about the human experience. This is about learning a new way to communicate. But Gary, when we first spoke to, and just to wrap up the couple minutes we have, and thank you for this, is you went through the process with your team. You kept your C-suite alerted that you were doing research on the different options that are available to us now and growing every day. And that basically is what kept this going. And I'm sure it's not over because we have the rest of the year to decide. So how did you leave it with them? And did you see a change in their perception of you and your team in the process?
Yes. Yeah. The wonderful thing is, and this is getting back to the adaptive creativity, which is something that Bob Backish, our CEO, has really been talking about, especially the last couple of months with us, because we still have to move business forward, but we have to do it in the same thoughtful, creative way, pushing those boundaries that we did before the pandemic.
I mean, exactly. And you know what? So here's exactly, I was going to go there, and thank you very much to Polly for making this comment. And I'll say this personally. All right. I'm getting pushback on the number of staff to handle a virtual event. It's a misconception that doing a virtual event, meeting, conference is any different than being in person.
Correct.
And I'm going to say this, yes, it is. Yes, do you have any guidance for what is truly needed? Producer, speaker, chat monitor, Q&A? Gary, what's your thoughts? Because I know what it takes to produce this event, and it is no different.
It is
Our hotel is the screen, and every one of the 8 people involved has a part. You find that? Yep.
We explained this to some of our people that were pushing back on this, because they're like, well, how come our budget, we should see more savings and stuff like that. So I said, well, here's what we're doing. We've eliminated some of the freelancers, because right now my job is to make sure that I have my staff that are full-time doing their work. But what we did was start to show the areas. We did a complete staffing breakdown for everybody, so that they knew that going into someone speaking, a talking head like this,
right.
We had a producer who had so many, much time beforehand,
right.
meeting with the person, going over the content, making sure the content worked, working with all the speakers that we were going to go to. We had a coordinator that worked with that production person, the producer, just to make sure that they were getting all the materials to and from. So we still needed someone to handle those materials. From the event side, we still needed coordinators, because what they started doing was reaching out, getting the guest list, finding out where these people live, what kind of things can we send them. We had them researching vendors that could drop ship, researching vendors that were local that could provide food, were there places that could provide alcohol, So
it's the same thing. It's the same. I mean, just for the sake of time, just because we're wrapping up, but just the bottom line is, everyone, and this is what Gary's saying, what I'm saying, whether your event is physical, and I remember Chris Weil years ago coined the term phygital. So we have phygital and digital. It still takes the same amount of effort. So again, like someone just commented, great, use your AV teams, use your production teams. We are logistics production experts.
Yes.
There is a need for someone who's not afraid to be in the camera, who can MC this, who can keep it going on, who can keep the flow. It's a facilitation that I'm doing with you throughout this process. So we're all here to learn. And Gary, thank you so
Dianne,
much. Do you have anything you want to leave us with? Huh?
One last thought is just, Diana Scott just sent something. We still need to create flawlessly executed events. We have to. And in order to do that, you need your human resources.
Absolutely.
You need them. And so that reduction is one thing that you have to stand by. Your team is there to make sure that virtual event is going to run as smoothly as doing it at the Marriott.
Yeah, no question. And you know what? The more we do these, and I have some ideas for the upcoming ones we're doing, the more they'll be engaging, there'll be interstitials, there'll be, it's, you know, it's the way we're going. It's like we'll change our habits. So Gary, good luck to you, huh? Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us
Thank you,
again.
Diane.
Okay,
Love all you
everybody.
guys.
Oh, thank you, everybody. Thanks.